morning and welcome to this year's Conservation Careers Fair, live in Lusaka, Zambia. My name is Louie and I'll be your host for this session. We are so excited to have you and we are going to have such a great time. With me, I have Clara Nanja from BirdWatch Zambia, and we're going to learn so much about the work that she does with birdwatch and with birds across Zambia, and more about what it's like to be a woman in the conservation sector. Hi.
Hi, Louie. I'm okay, thanks. How are you today?
Good.
Great.
Good. My first question for you, Clara, is what did you want to become when you were growing up?
Like most young, enthusiastic Zambians, I wanted to be a doctor. So I thought I would make a really great doctor because I was compassionate, I was kind, and I thought I would be helpful to the world in the health sector. Yeah.
So when did things change? Because obviously you're not a doctor today, at least not for human beings. But at some point, the dream must have changed to what you're doing now. Can you tell us a bit about that?
So growing up and getting almost at the end of my secondary school, I got convinced to try and think more of agriculture. And it made sense at the time, and that is what I wanted to become. So I went to university and I thought I should pursue a course in agriculture because from what I heard from the environment I was in at the time, it was a productive sector, it was a good career to pursue, it was marketable, and it did sound really great.
So again, agriculture, doctor, how do we get to birds? Yeah.
So first year into university, firstly made it to the natural sciences. I'm a graduate from, undergraduate from the University of Zambia. So I went into the natural sciences and I still did want to do agriculture. I met a really, really great biology lecturer who sat me down and talked me into ecology. And at the time, I am born from Livingstone, so I had seen quite a few tourists around the area. I had visited the Victoria Falls, I had been to the national park, so I liked what I saw and I thought it was nice to be around such places. So when my lecturer talked me into ecology and told me what the benefits were, I did think it was the place that I was going to call home. It would give me the pleasure and the work and just give me the satisfaction of work.
I'm glad you found that, and I love that you mentioned pleasure. But ecology is still a very broad field. I mean, there's field biologists who study everything from tiny little ants to elephants, but your field and your passion is in birds. Can you tell us a bit about your journey from UNZA to working at BirdWatch Zambia and some of the work that you do today?
So my interaction with birds actually was sparked in my third year at university when a team from BirdWatch Zambia visited the university and they wanted ecologists to join them on a research at the time. So we went in the field for about 2-3 weeks. They were a really nice, passionate team that could speak science that you can actually see, and you see the linkages between everything else around the science. It was a really different experience from the theory that we learned in class, and to experience ecology and to see ecology and to practice it was a really, really amazing opportunity. So my touch with birds was when the BirdWatch Zambia team came and found us and picked us up in the team, and that literally just switched my thinking around what exactly around the ecology circles I really wanted to do. And after that first encounter, another second one came on for about a month of engagement with BirdWatch, again 2 years later, and that was after I was out of university. It was I was still young and thinking, do I really want to do this? But the team was really great, passionate, and I envied them a lot and wanted to do what they do. So I was happy to get an opportunity again, 3-4 years down the line, to actually practice ecology more in more of a permanent place at it. Yeah.
Again, like a reoccurring theme I see you talking about is passion. and a good friend of ours, Chawana Piri, who you worked with for a long time, is very passionate about birds. And anytime you start talking to her about birds, she mentions her favorite bird. So I have that question for you. What is your favorite bird and why?
Oh, that's a difficult question, because I think my favorite bird changes. I don't really have one standard bird, but right now my most amazing bird is the variable sunbird. Firstly, because I saw its picture before I actually saw it with my eyes. I actually have it at home, so it comes home and I see it a lot of times. Now I know what it calls like. I like the pictures, I like the behavior, I like what it does within the environment. It's quite an easy bird to see. I was fascinated at how small it actually is when you see it. I saw the picture first and I thought it was a really huge bird, so I call it my spirit bird at the moment. Yeah.
And so I think one of the biggest challenges you must face in your work is explaining to Zambians and maybe the world in general, why birds? Why should so much time and energy be invested in birds? Because like you said, we all have birds at our houses. Yep. It doesn't seem like birds are endangered. In fact, they seem to be that thing that's just part of our environment and you don't even notice. They're always squeaking or squawking in the background. So why birds? Why should we care, and why is so much time and energy and your life invested in birds?
Great question, really. Birds need a voice, Louis. Birds need to be cared for. Birds show us so many things that are within our environment. And so with the initial interaction I had with birds, and that's where my passion comes from, it's how I am curious to know things, and Zambia has slightly over 750 species of birds.
Wow.
So you can only imagine how far my curiosity could go. This is a lifetime opportunity to learn every day. This is a lifetime opportunity to raise awareness about these birds. With the vast number of birds that we have, they play really important roles in our environment. They balance the ecosystem. The birds play a role in pollination. And you know why that is extremely important. Birds, they control the insects and rodent populations, making sure that we don't have outbreaks of diseases and we don't have too many of other species within our environment. An example of a bird that is an insect or rodent control is the barn swallow that can feed on so many mosquitoes in just a minute. So imagine if we got rid of the population of the swallows, we can only have so many mosquitoes, and the diseases absolutely for the human beings. In addition to that, birds play a critical role in cleaning up the environment. We have the pied crows, the mwankoles, we have the vultures. That is cheap and effective way of cleaning up the environment. Sometimes we litter in so many places that these birds see or actually go there and clean up everything that is left out. If that is unattended to, we'll have so many diseases within our environment. So they curb pollution up to a point. They are pollinators. They are insect and rodent control. And they are beautiful to look at.
I agree. I didn't know we had 750 species.
Plus.
Yeah, plus. I mean, for all we know, maybe there's a species we haven't even discovered yet that's waiting for Clara to go out and discover.
Yeah.
But I like that you mentioned some of the jobs that they do for us in our ecosystem, like pest control or, garbage collection, as you would call it. But while you were saying that, I was also thinking about some of the negative effects of us polluting the environment and how they could potentially affect species such as birds. What do you feel are some of the biggest challenges you face in your career as a bird ecologist?
Right, so some of the threats that these birds actually face is mostly from humans, and some of them are plastic pollution, some of them are invasive species within our ecosystems. And some of the challenges that we have as bird ecologists is that we are we need to raise a lot more awareness to people. We see a lot of things going on that we take for granted, and one challenge is that we are quite a small community of birders that actually do appreciate birds, and so we want a lot more people to know and appreciate why we need birds within our environment. So one challenge is, as BirdWatch Zambia, we need to go throughout the country and make sure that people know why birds are important, what interventions we need to put in place, and why we need to keep our environment clean and sane for the birds, for the rest of the biodiversity, and for the human beings as well. Yeah.
And over the last couple of years that you've been a conservationist, do you feel like Zambians are understanding this message and getting involved? Or do you think that we have a lot of work to do still?
There's still so much that needs to be done. I wouldn't quite say we have a lot more people that are getting involved, but I think there's a lot more of awareness that's coming out in the public from various institutions. And so with that awareness, we want to see people acting even in the smallest way. It could be at household level, it could be at their schools, it could be within their communities, or even just for an entire landscape. So we still have a lot of work to do, and I think the conservation organizations are doing quite great with the awareness. What we need now is to get into more and more action and to get things moving. Yeah.
So for someone sitting at home who might be interested in your work, how can they get involved today? Are there any opportunities available at BirdWatch, and if so, what kind?
Great. So there are multiple opportunities that BirdWatch Zambia could offer you. And our work mainly is around species, sites, habitats, and environmental education. So one way anybody at home could get involved is to become, we offer internship, especially for people that are in their final year of university or people that have just completed their university. So we take in interns just so they can have the hands-on experience. Sometimes school will just give you the theory, and we want ecology students to practice, even just as a start. Secondly, people could volunteer, either on what they are specific with, or they could just come and ask us about what volunteer opportunities we can offer, depending on what they are really interested in. Thirdly, they can sign up as members. Well, so BirdWatch Zambia is a membership organization. They can become a member, they can be part of our many day-to-day activities that we're involved with at BirdWatch Zambia. They can become bird ambassadors. They can become a species ambassador. So pick the bird on the one kwacha coin, the Zambian barbet, and become an ambassador. Raise awareness to every Zambian about it. Another way they could get involved is to join the team. There are opportunities for employment. There are opportunities to speak to the team or to speak to experts around that. They can also become bird guides. People need to learn about the birds, not just by looking at them. The fun is knowing what the bird is, where the bird is found, what the birds eat, and it's a really great opportunity. So those are some of the opportunities that we can share as BirdWatch Zambia. Yeah.
So just to be clear, you said the various opportunities available if you're sitting at home is, number one, you could become a volunteer at BirdWatch Zambia. So they are looking for volunteers. I'm sure even today, if you reach out to them, you can volunteer to work with them. And I'm sure there's different types of volunteers that you take with different abilities. You also mentioned internships. And a question that I had for you is, you mentioned ecology students. What about someone who may have studied something outside of ecology? Are there also opportunities for them to work with you, or are you strictly interested in ecology students?
Right, so most of the work that we do is science-based, and we'll most likely take in people that have done natural resource management, people that have done environmental education, because at least it speaks to the objectives of the organization. So it's mostly around the areas of science, yeah, both on the natural resource part and the environmental education.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about someone who, for example, studied mathematics? Someone just put in the chat below, what opportunities are there for a mathematician? Do you think that there's any space in your organization for someone like that?
That's interesting. Mathematics, yes, quite. So we'd be happy to see how we can link the mathematics to the science. and see how, if they have something more than the mathematics, then it certainly becomes a plus, because mathematics on its own could quite fall out, because it's not really science and it's not really on the environmental education side of things. So yeah.
But I'm sure with time they could learn and see where they fit in.
Exactly.
You know, like you started off thinking you wanted to do one thing and you find yourself here today.
Yeah.
So another question that we have from the audience is, how many species are considered endangered in Zambia? How many bird species, I would say, to be specific? I know it's a very tough question to ask, because you can't give a specific number,
yeah,
but maybe you could just highlight some of the endangered bird species we have.
Okay, so over 40% of the species that we have in Zambia are considered endangered, and that is why we need a lot of people involved, a lot of people putting in effort into the conservation of birds. An example is the globally threatened wattled crane, which actually does breed in Zambia. So 70% of that population is in Zambia. And one place you could find that, for instance, is the Kafue Flats, the Lochinvar National Park and Blue Lagoon National Park as an example. So that one is actually considered globally threatened. So we have such species. Even the Zambian barbet that I mentioned, we really have a really small population, but all of these species, while they are globally threatened or endangered, they are still facing quite a number of threats that we need to work around in Zambia and make sure that these species are conserved and they don't get into extinction.
Okay.
Yeah.
So just, you mentioned the Zambian barbet, the bird on the one kwacha coin,
yes,
and I think earlier you also mentioned being an ambassador. So maybe someone doesn't necessarily have to quit their job immediately and say, okay, I'm going to go work for BirdWatch Zambia, but they could become an ambassador and just talk about that.
Yes.
Then you also mentioned the wattled crane, and you said that 70% of the population of wattled cranes, the global population,
yes,
is in Zambia, and I think that's an amazing achievement, and I know that you and some of your partners are working to preserve this species. But are there any other species that you'd like to highlight and mention and think that people at home could help to protect?
Literally every species needs to be protected. So the IUCN Red List provides a whole threshold of where species lie, and we have common species that you could have at your house, making all the nests in your ceiling or in your, is the sparrows. Mm-hmm. So those ones equally do need to be protected. They are of least concern, but it doesn't mean that we need to get rid of the entire population. So we have another species of the cranes, which is the crested crane. Equally, it is endangered and it needs protection. We have, I mentioned Zambian barbet wattled crane. I mentioned the gray-crowned crane. We have the Africa pitta. We have really quite a number of birds that need our intervention.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love how you talk about this. The passion shows, you know all of these birds and you can name them. But for most of us, as particularly as Zambians, we've never really had the opportunity to learn about birds, to learn their species, to learn the name and what they look like. Mm-hmm. How can someone who's interested in birds at home get involved and find out about the different birds available? Aside from maybe volunteering or becoming an intern,
yeah,
are there opportunities for general members of the public who might have interest in birds to learn more about them?
Okay, so good thing about birds is they don't have borders. So you find birds everywhere. There are birds at your home, there are birds in the neighborhood. They could be water birds, they could be woodland birds. We love people that have interest. Sometimes it is you finding a nest in a tree at your home. Take a picture of it, send it through to us. We could be able to help you with the identification. So depending on where you are listening from, or depending on where you are, you could contact us. We could get you in touch with people within your town that could help you with going to destinations where you could find birds, help you with bird identification, and just get your interest a lot more stimulated.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there are two things I picked from that. Number one, reach out. BirdWatch Zambia are on social media. We're on Facebook Live right now, which means you are on Facebook. So you can, after this, reach out to the BirdWatch Zambia Facebook page and the team behind that, and find out where BirdWatch officers are located near you. And in fact, that leads me to one of the questions that we had. Someone was asking, do you have a branch in Ndola? Or if they're interested in your work in Ndola, who can they reach out to?
Okay, so our office is in Lusaka at plot number 25, Joseph Mwilwa Road. We have branches throughout the country. So we have people that are managing these branches in the country, and we could link you up. So we do have people on the Copper Belt, we have people eastern and southern and everywhere. So please just get in touch on our Facebook page, and we'll be able to link you to the right people that could be of help with that. Yeah.
All right. And this is similar to the question that I had already asked, but I think this person desperately wants an answer anyway. What do you consider the biggest danger to birds in our environment?
Well, different birds are found in different environments, and so their threats are not generic. So one threat, I'll speak especially about the vultures, which are critically endangered. So one threat that they face is poisoning, and this is either because it's intentional or unintentional. So poisoning is one of the threats. Secondly, birds face threats with collision. Firstly, with tall buildings, with power lines, birds migrate. So, and they are very, very site specific. So they use the same routes, they go back to the same destinations each and every year. So within those routes, some of the threats that they face is starvation of food. Some of their stopover sites they found have been turned into a residential area, and they don't have a stopover site anymore. Competition is another threat that the birds face. So those are some of the threats that birds face in general that can be specified to species.
Okay.
Yeah.
You mentioned poisoning and vultures. Could you elaborate more on how vultures get poisoned? What is poisoning them, and how does that happen, and what are the effects of that?
Okay, so most of the poisoning that we face, especially in Zambia, is lead poisoning. Most of it unintentional. A poacher, for instance, who shoots an elephant with a lead bullet, that elephant dies. Vultures move in really, really large numbers. So you could find 100, 300 vultures all in one flock. And when they go down to feed on an elephant that has been poisoned by lead or that was shot using a lead bullet, all of the elephants die. So as birdwatch, and like I said in the start, that these birds need a voice, you will hear, Louis, that there was an elephant that was poached or poisoned. You never hear about the 800 birds. So we need a lot more voices coming on. While we have one elephant that has died, we have other species of concern that we need to preserve, because these species give us a status as a country, they give us a status as Zambia. They put us out there and say we have this population of birds that are threatened in the country and need to be preserved.
Yeah, I get that, and I agree with you. You know, Zambia is known for many things. We're known for the Victoria Falls, for copper, but thanks to you, I'm learning that there's lots of unique bird species that might only be found here and nowhere else in the world, or at least that we have very significant populations that are found here and nowhere else that we need to conserve. So another question that we have, and I hope I'm getting this right, is how can a general business practice work at, hope I get that right, at BirdWatch Zambia? So how can a general business practice work at BirdWatch Zambia? Maybe, I think what they're trying to say is how can they collaborate with you?
Okay.
How can just any company that's interested learn more about your work and collaborate with BirdWatch Zambia?
Okay, great. So we collaborate with, we're not restricted to who we want to work with, because everybody has got a responsibility when it comes to conservation, and because it affects everybody. So we are not restricted to work with conservation NGOs, government entities, private entities. We are open to sit and discuss and see what opportunities we can share. We do take part in various assessments to see what bird populations we have, what effects are there, and also it's an office, so it could be any business. You could be a provider of stationery, you could be, so it's a whole range of things that we're able to collaborate with anybody. So please contact us, get through to our Facebook page, and inbox us. We are happy to sit with you and liaise with you on how we can collaborate, depending on what enterprise you are and what you are happy to offer.
Right.
Yeah.
Another question that I have is, I know because I've experienced myself that you often have bird walks.
Yes.
And allow people to go to certain areas and learn about the birds. And I don't know much about birds, but the people who go on these bird walks are very kind and will teach you different species and what they do. Are those open to just anybody? Can people participate? Or how can they find out more about these events?
So we are a membership-based organization, like I stated earlier, and the bird walks are conducted monthly. The bird walks are mostly restricted to the membership. Like you said, the keen birders, or they are very passionate. They will teach you. They are very patient with the new birders, and they want to get everybody involved. So one way is to sign up for membership at BirdWatch Zambia. You can know how. You can ask us how. And once you get that done, we'll be able to send through to you our monthly newsletter. You know when we have all of these activities going on. But also we have a whole range of conservation calendar days that we commemorate, and we either like to go to places that either one of the 42 key biodiversity areas that we have in this country, or go to the nearest place where we can do birding. This coming weekend we'll be commemorating the World Migratory Bird Day. This is because we appreciate that birds migrate a long distance and come all the way for all of the benefits that Zambia is able to provide. In addition to that, we'll be commemorating the Global Big Day this weekend, and we like to have people coming on board for such events to a destination where we can sit with them, chat with them about birds, and they can actually see the birds.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Clara. I have learned so much, and I'm sure if you're listening at home or at work or wherever you are right now, you've learned quite a lot. I just want to remind you to go back to the BirdWatch Zambia Facebook page. Please like, inbox them, find out if you can maybe become an intern, become a volunteer, or ideally become a member, subscribe to be part of their membership, and then you can go on monthly birdwatch like I do. So is there anything you want to say in conclusion?
In conclusion, I would like to say conservation is everybody's business. You don't need to be, it doesn't have to be your career. All of us have got a responsibility for the environment, in turn for ourselves. So let's all take responsibility, because this is where our future lies.
Great. Thank you, Clara.
Thanks, Louie. Great having me.